In a city built on secrets and sustained by the fragile peace between powerful organizations, a philosophical war was being waged not with weapons, but with words. On one side was Andy Lucifer, the enigmatic and often misunderstood leader of the city, a man known for his chaotic office, his love of terrible, we-cold coffee, and a mind that never stopped connecting disparate threads of reality. His public persona was that of a laid-back, almost clownish leader, but beneath that surface was one of the most formidable intellects of his generation. His chief critic was Bruce, the formidable head of a powerful, shadowy organization. Where Andy was fluid and abstract, Bruce was rigid and pragmatic. He saw Andy's philosophical musings not as profound, but as poisonous. He had even written a book, a critique of Post-Afterism, dedicated to dismantling Andy's ideas. Bruce argued that Andy's philosophy was a cancer of nihilism, a justification for inaction disguised as wisdom. To Bruce, the world was built on ambition, order, and clear goals. Andy's constant questioning of, "and what after?" seemed to undermine the very foundation of a striving society. Their conflict was the central ideological battle of the city. Most citizens, influenced by Bruce's powerful propaganda and Andy's own deliberately obscure writing, believed that post-afterism was indeed a philosophy of despair. They thought it taught that since all efforts ultimately lead to the same end, death and oblivion, why bother at all? "Don't try, for your efforts are meaningless," was the slogan everyone knew. But this was a lie, or at best a catastrophic misunderstanding. The true philosophy of post-afterism, which Andy had only ever shared in fragments and hidden between the lines of his books, was not about the meaninglessness of action, but about its meaningfulness through consequence. Andy called this deeper concept the post-after chain. He believed that the value of any action is not determined by the action itself, but by the magnitude and duration of its consequences, its chain. He illustrated this with two types of actions. A short-chain action is something like changing your clothes. The consequences are fleeting, a moment of comfort, a brief compliment. The chain begins and ends almost immediately. A long-chain action, however, is something like the European Enlightenment. That single intellectual movement set off a chain of events: scientific revolution, industrial advancement, medical breakthroughs, that is still unfolding today, saving lives and expanding knowledge centuries later. That is a powerful post-after chain. The meaning isn't in a final destination, but in the journey of the chain itself. This was the philosophy Bruce refused to see. He was so focused on the starting point, the initial effort, that he was blind to the horizon of consequences. A perfect and deeply personal example of this philosophy in action occurred during a visit Andy made to the city's cemetery. He was accompanying a young woman named Miss A, who was desperate to learn more about her own past. As they walked among the tombstones, a small family approached them: a father, a mother, and their teenage son, who was being dragged along with a look of profound resentment and embarrassment. The parents, awestruck, recognized Andy immediately and begged for a photo. The father, beaming with pride, then turned to his sullen son and said, "You see, this is the great Andy Lucifer. One day you must grow up to be just like him." The comment hung in the air, heavy and clumsy. The boy's face crumpled further, a mix of shame and anger. He was being compared to a legend and found wanting in front of the legend himself. But Andy saw something else. He saw a young mind being crushed by unrealistic expectations. He saw a chain of negativity about to be reinforced. So he bent down, ignoring the parents, and looked the boy directly in the eye. "Your hairstyle is brilliant," Andy whispered, a conspiratorial smile on his face. "And from your expression I can tell you're far smarter than I am. Your father doesn't know your true potential. What's your name?" The boy, startled by the attention and the kind words from his hero, stammered, "Arraz. Maximilian Arraz." Andy's eyes twinkled. "The Maximilian family. Then I was absolutely right to predict your intelligence. I will remember your name, Araz. In that single, deliberate moment, Andy performed a classic long chain action. He saw a short chain of events about to unfold. A scolding, a resentful car ride home, a deepening of the boy's insecurities. He interrupted it. By offering genuine, specific praise and affirming the boy's individual worth, Andy planted a seed. The post-after of that action, the boy Araz walked away with his shoulders straight and a new light in his eyes. He felt seen and valued for who he was, not who he was supposed to be. What after? That boost in self-esteem might give him the confidence to pursue a difficult passion. What after? That passion could lead to an innovation or a work of art that benefits thousands. What after? The chain is potentially infinite. Andy didn't just give a compliment. He invested in a human being's future, altering the trajectory of his life towards a more positive, productive path. This was post-afterism in its purest form, an action whose positive consequences were designed to ripple outward long after the moment itself had passed. This was the profound truth that Bruce, in his rigid worldview, could never grasp. He was so busy trying to control the present that he was blind to the future. He saw Andy's philosophy as a threat to order, when in reality, it was a blueprint for building a lasting, evolving legacy. For Andy, the ultimate actions were those rooted in our social sense, the understanding that we are nodes in a vast, interconnected network, and that our highest purpose is to initiate chains of positive consequences for others. The story of Andy and Bruce is the story of two ways of seeing the world. One sees a wall at the end of every road and calls it realism. The other sees an endless series of paths branching from every action and calls it meaning. Andy Lucifer, the so-called nihilist, was in fact a profound optimist. He believed that our lives are not defined by their final punctuation mark, but by the countless sentences we help write in the stories of others, long after our own story has ended. So the next time you are faced with a choice, ask yourself the question that defined Andy's true philosophy, not the despairing "so what," but the strategic "and what after." What chain are you about to begin? Is it a short one ending only with you? Or is it a long one, a chain of kindness, of knowledge, of empowerment that will stretch far into the future, long after you are gone? That is the power and the promise of true post-afterism. It is not a call to inaction. It is a challenge to act with a purpose that transcends the self and echoes through time. And now, return to the myth of Sisyphus. Through the superficial lens, his fate is the ultimate image of absurd futility. A man condemned by the gods to roll a boulder up a hill for all eternity, only to watch it roll back down each time. The pointless labor is the entire story. But through Andy's true philosophy, the myth is transformed. The meaning is no longer confined to Sisyphus's direct action and its immediate, frustrating outcome. The meaning shifts to the potential post-after chain of his struggle. Imagine if other prisoners, or even the gods themselves, witnessed his unyielding perseverance. His endless toil ceases to be just a punishment and becomes a silent, powerful lesson in resilience. The after of each push is not the boulder at the bottom of the hill. It is the echo of his determination in the hearts of those who see him. His value, his legacy, is no longer defined by his success or failure in completing the task, but by the immense, potentially infinite chain of inspiration and reevaluation of strength that is action, his continued choice to push, creates in the world. The boulder rolling down is the end of a short chain. Sisyphus choosing to push again is the beginning of a long one.